Okay, right. It is an extreme pleasure for me to talk about the most gracious, handsome, learned, and open-minded couple I've ever met in my life. Shaista Puppu and Puppa Asad. I knew Shaista Puppu before because she was my father's first cousin, and I'd heard she'd studied in England, and I was maha impressed by that fact. And then I did finally meet her, and I was quite knocked over by her graciousness and her interest in me. I met Puppa Asad when I joined the Aligarh University. I hadn't met him before that, and I was surprised to see this very English-looking gentleman with a slight British accent, except he always pronounced school as school and telephone as telephone, right to the end, which I loved. And his explanation of William Hazlitt's The Superannuated Man and his reading of The Tempest to us when I was in BA first year are memories that are engraved in my mind. I, of course, later, after my own parents passed away, graduated to addressing them as Abba and Ammi, Amma rather. And they were foster parents to me while they were alive. My greatest memory of Amma is when I was struggling to get admission in the BSc course in Aligarh. My father wanted me to do, you're going to become a doctor. And I wasn't getting admission, so he and I were running from pillar to post in the April heat of Aligarh, trying to secure this admission, which of course never happened. But on our way to some office or the other, we saw this extremely cool looking lady. I saw her from a distance, sitting alone in a rickshaw, looking like a queen, with this beautiful off-white Georgette sari and the most dignified posture I've ever seen. And she greeted my father, and I said, "Oh, that's Shaista Puppu." And she said, "Please come and visit us. You must while you're here." And my father promised to, but he was not a very sociable person, and the admission never happened, so he went back unhappy. Shaista Puppu and Asad, Rabba and Amma, left Aligarh halfway through my stay there. But I did go to their house a few times, and one of the first questions Appa asked me was, "What do you read?" So I said, P.G. Wodehouse, because that's all I ever read at that time, or Billy Bunter, and he sort of went and handed me a book by Richard Collier of the Indian Mutiny, which I did read and returned to him, and he checked the spine of the book to see if it had actually been read, and he was pleased. And then he asked me, "What sort of music do you like?" So I didn't want to say Hindi film music. The Hindi film music of that time was pretty good actually. So I said, "Beatles." And he sort of smirked and said, "Listen to this." And he pulled out this 33 RPM record of Joan Baez, and he played it on his stereophonic, and I can never forget the effect that that honeyed, melodious, full of feeling voice had on me. And so Abba was responsible for my introduction both to serious literature and to the music of Joan Baez. Amma I was never taught by, because she was in the girls' college. She was one of the most beloved teachers in the Abdullah Girls' College. But I never had the pleasure of attending a class by her. I can just imagine what her classes must have been. And then of course they went away to America, and through Aziz, I got in touch with them again, because Aziz came to Bombay and introduced himself as the son of Shaista and Asad. And I was delighted to meet him, and through him we got in touch with them again. So we went to New York several times, a couple of times just to meet them. And they were really foster parents. Amma had this unfortunate accident which made her confined to a wheelchair for the last few years of her life, but I've never seen anybody take a misfortune like that so positively. And the way Abba dealt with her loss was also something that was a very great lesson. And Abba was, to me, the father I never had. He came to India also many times and stayed with us, just for the pleasure of visiting us and for visiting his ancestral home, Bashram. But the kind of relationship I had with him was the kind of relationship I always dreamt of having with my father, and never did, of course. Because Abba was not judgmental, he was interested, he was a sport, he was game for anything. And he was a very kind and gracious soul. Both of them had great minds, and it was very stimulating to talk to them, in fact. I don't know if I can talk about this or not. Aziz, you can cut it out. I found they were on that level, which was an amazing experience for me, because when you're on that thing, you can't tolerate anybody who's not, and anybody whose vibe doesn't match with yours. But it was amazing for me to talk to them. We just made a visit to the actors' studio, and I was telling them about my experience there, and I told them that the next generation of great actors is not going to come from America. And Amma said, really, why? I said, no, it's going to come from India. So they both had a great laugh about it. And then Abba one day said, "Koi mera hukka agar taiyar kar de." So I said, I'll do it. And I tried, but he had to instruct me halfway through, and then he sat and smoked his hukka. But that conversation with them is something which I could never have had with my father. In fact, none of the conversations I had with them are conversations I could have had with my father. My mother, who was unconditionally supportive, wouldn't have understood in any case. But if I dropped to my father under the influence of purple haze, I don't think he would have enjoyed it very much. So I'm grateful to have known both of them and received their love and affection. And I'm grateful that Asad Fua fulfilled my desire to have a father I could talk to. See you sometime, Aziz.